Welcome to Dear Warriors. My name is Amy Vega, and I am your host. I have worked in the plasma industry for over 20 years. Throughout my career, I was blessed to have worked with the most incredible employees and met the most amazing donors and recipients of plasma. This podcast was started to bring to light what had been in the shadows, the rare disease community. Join me on Dear Warriors, where we will share stories of warriors and so much more. Welcome to Dear Warriors. My name is Amy, and I am your host. Today's guest has been receiving IVIG therapy for about 8 years. Her name is Allie Brown. Allie, welcome to the show. Hi, sweetheart. So let's jump right in. Take us back 8 years ago.
I'm already covered in goosebumps when you asked me to go back 8 years. It's as if it was yesterday. So we're in 2020. In 2009, the bottom fell out for me. I had grown up sick. I have had health problems for as long as I can remember. When I was in maybe second grade, I think it was, I missed a ton of school. I missed probably more school than I attended. I was throwing up all the time. I was reacting to everything. I got rashes. I had chronic pink eye, chronic strep. I even had the mumps. I had the measles in my throat. You name it, I had it. And that's the way the story started. And it was difficult. But then as I got older, it's hard to imagine, but things actually became a little bit more complicated. So in elementary school, it was mostly throwing up and pink eye and strep. I didn't have chronic pain yet. But then once middle school started, I had problems with breaking bones. And they said that I had osteopenia, or I was osteopenia, however you say it correctly. But my bones were basically not in good shape. And I was breaking my bones, and I didn't even play sports, but it didn't take much for me to injure myself. So that's kind of when things started to go in a different direction. My stomach was still an issue, but other issues started to pop up. And in 2004, I got bit by a tick and I twisted my ankle and I had 2 ear infections. I was at a sleepaway camp in Virginia. And I was young, so 2004, I was probably, 13, 14. And I had the twisted ankle and the 2 ear infections. The tick bite was sort of obsolete to the camp counselors. They didn't really know what to do about it. They didn't really care. They were more concerned about my ankle and my ear infections. So the tick bite got pushed off the burner, so to speak. And I didn't know what to do because I told him that it was serious, but at that age, they don't take you seriously. So I told him that I had this huge, huge bullseye rash on my leg, and they didn't really do anything about it. So the rest of the camp went by. It was 2 weeks I was there, and I came home, and my foot that I had injured was dark purple. And of course, my parents totally freaked out, and they took me to a specialist at Georgetown University Hospital, a hospital with high credentials, and they diagnosed me with reflex sympathetic dystrophy, also acronymed RSD, and it's a pain disorder. And that's pretty much when the bottom really fell out for me. 2004, I was diagnosed with RSD, and after that, I developed chronic pain. The RSD spread throughout my system, and I started hurting everywhere, all day, every day. And the tick bite was put on the back burner. I got tested for Lyme disease when I got back from camp but they had tested me too soon. So I hadn't developed the antibodies for it yet. So it came back negative. And I don't recall which specialist I was seeing at that time. I've seen dozens over the course of this bumpy adventure. But they said, well, it came back negative, so that's obviously not the problem. And my family and I didn't know any better to say, no, I think we should test her again. Or how about you don't worry about getting the positive test result and you just treat her for her symptoms. That didn't happen. So we just plowed forward thinking that the RSD was the problem. We didn't realize that there was Lyme disease underneath all of the terror that was going on inside my vessel. Fast forward through to high school, I was in chronic pain. I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia. The lady that I saw, she was a nutritionist. She told me to cut out gluten, nightshades, and dairy, which I did, which was hard. That affected me socially, emotionally, physically. It did help my pain a little bit, but making it through high school was one of the hardest things I've ever done. I even had to go half schedule. I had to go half a day. I couldn't even make it through the whole day. I had to have a modified schedule. And I actually also needed a tutor to pass my English class. And I'm a good student, I will say. I study, I read, but I had horrific brain fog. I couldn't remember anything. I couldn't recall anything. I had terrible sleep patterns. I didn't sleep well, mostly because I was in pain, which probably affected my memory as well. And when you're in pain, you can't concentrate. People ask invisible illness warriors to describe their pain. And I'm always baffled by that question because I never know how to describe my pain. It's just pain. So I've come to realize that when people ask me that, it's loud. My pain is loud. It's deafening. When it's bad, I can't hear anything else in my environment. I can't think about anything else. I can't do anything else. The pain is all that I can hear and all that I can comprehend at that time. So in high school, it was at one of its highest levels. My full body pain was horrific. And then I wanted to go to college, right? I was just trying to be a normal kid, even though my life couldn't have been farther from normal. I got accepted into my dream university, and the bottom continued to fall out at that point. I went away to school. I had been diagnosed with Hashimoto's autoimmune thyroiditis the summer before I went away to college. And I had put on 20 pounds in maybe a month or so. And I was swimming several miles a day, walking several miles a day, and eating a pretty darn healthy diet. And my weight just skyrocketed. And I had horrible chronic fatigue. I was like Rip Van Winkle for a long time. And we didn't know what was going on. But something had changed after I got my college vaccinations. I was ill before. As I said, somebody up above us decided that I needed to be a wellness warrior. And it started at the beginning, and it's still going on now. I'm almost 30, but the bottom fell out again when I tried to go away to school. I got the college vaccinations, and they nearly killed me. For, I think, 2 weeks, I was bedridden with a cough, a 105 fever. I had stuff oozing out of my eyes. I had shakes. I had a horrific slew of symptoms because of the vaccinations. And some people in my life, my family, who has played a huge role in my support network, they believe that the vaccinations played a role in the breakdown of my body even further. So I went away to school, pretending like everything was okay. My brain fog worsened, my fatigue worsened. I wasn't really able to eat anything on campus because I didn't want my weight to go up, and I was worried about gluten contamination in the cafeteria. So I didn't really eat anything. I went to the gym twice a day, every day, and I was failing my classes. And I don't drink. I've never drank ever. I've never had alcohol, and I was failing my classes. I'm not a partier. My hardest form of partying is staying up too late on my couch watching Netflix. I'm not a party animal, and I was failing my classes, and I barely made it through the school year. And I came home and I told my parents, I said, I think I'm actually too sick to go to school right now. I'm not really sure what's going on, but I need to kind of stop what I'm doing to figure this out. I need to clear my plate, and the only thing that I need to focus on is why I feel like I'm dying at such a rapid rate at 19 years old, 18. So I took a year off of college to just come to a screeching halt, focus on what's going on with my body, why things were continuing to deteriorate, why I couldn't think straight, why I couldn't sleep, why my pain was bad. I just needed to clear all of my distractions out of the way and figure out what was going on with me. And I couldn't do that if I was away at school trying to pretend like everything was okay. So after I took that year off, I had sort of self-diagnosed. I think I was loosely diagnosed with celiac disease. I know for a fact in my heart that I have IBD. My diagnoses have not been super concrete, but I have come to trust and believe that you treat people's symptoms and you treat them on their word and their honor, not necessarily on a test result. So after figuring that out and doing some research, I found something called the specific carbohydrate diet. And it's an anti-inflammatory diet that's geared toward people with inflammatory bowel disease. It's supposed to put out the fire that's constantly burning inside you. So I started that diet. It's a pretty restricted diet at first. It's chicken soup for 4 days. And then you just slowly start introducing one food at a time. It's kind of like a baby diet. Someone explained to me one day because I didn't understand the concept. And they said it's sort of like when you introduce foods to a baby. You introduce one food, you wait a week, and then you introduce another food. And you keep track of your symptoms and how you're feeling and so forth. And that was a pretty heavy lift. So I did that while I was off school. And once I felt like I had a grip on the diet, I decided to enroll at the community college, which was very close to my home. And it was the last thing that I wanted to do. I really wanted to go away for school, but I can say it now, I'm older and wiser and more patient and willing to accept that I was just destined to go down a different path in life. But at the time, it was the last place I wanted to be seen on earth. I was embarrassed to tell people I was going there, as a matter of fact, to take it one step further. I did not want to go to the community college. To me, that was a setback. But I dug my feet into the sand and said, if this is what it's going to be, then you're going to make the best of it. So I went there. I befriended the staff. I didn't really get along with the students, but that was all right. I found my connections with the staff, and I worked very, 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 very part-time at the bookstore. I could only work a couple hours a week because I have poor circulation, and the school was like a chemical bubble for me. I react to stores, I react to clothes, I react to dyes, lights. So being in the bookstore was actually kind of harmful, but it was good for my mental health. And my boss was phenomenal, and he actually kept me on as an employee, only working a couple hours a week, which was great because it made it doable for me. I felt like I could connect with people. Of course, sometimes during my shift, depending on what would happen, I would have sweat circles down to my waist in a matter of seconds. For me, it's my problems with my autonomic nervous system, which is, I believe, is what was damaged by the RSD. I'm not really sure what happened to my autonomic nervous system. It's kind of the chicken or the egg situation. But it would happen when I was on shift, and I would just be standing in front of a customer and I'd have sweat circles down to my waist. And it was like, well, this is what it is. I'm going to have to love this vessel no matter what. And I learned to love it, even though I still secretly was very frustrated by it. I made my way through my associate's degree. I graduated there with a 4.0, and I finished, and I told my parents, that was a big push for me, going on campus all the time, being in front of all those people. I think I'm going to finish my degree online. So I did, and I transferred to an online program, and I thrived in that environment. Totally thrived in it. I didn't have to worry about how sweaty I was. I didn't have to worry about what to do if I was in pain. I could just lie down and work on my laptop like that. I could take a salt bath if I needed to. As long as I got my work done by the deadline, I could get to the finish line any which way that I wanted. Unlike the strict format of having to go on campus and sit in class on a hard chair with artificial lighting and disgusting air moving throughout the building. So switching to an online program was an enormous lifesaver for me. And then I graduated with my bachelor's degree, and I started applying for jobs because I've been getting this IVIG therapy, immunoglobulin therapy, for about 8 years now. And that piece came into view when I was diagnosed with a primary immune deficiency, which we believe I was born with. And I was also diagnosed with chronic Lyme eventually in 2013, which was about 10 years after the tick bite. And it's been a long journey. I feel like I'm out of breath because I've just rattled off a whole lot of big things. When I got my degree and I realized I needed to provide myself with a safety net, I had to start applying for jobs. And a lot of people in my community, including my blogs community, which I also did not mention, because when people ask me to share my story, sometimes it's easier to pick out the bad parts than it is to pick out the easy parts, because the bad parts stick out a little bit more than the good parts. But another thing that I did that saved my life was launch a blog of my very own, because I felt isolated. When I had to drop out of school, I lost all my friends, and I didn't even have that many to begin with because I didn't drink, I didn't eat the same foods that they did, I didn't party like they did. I had a very hard time identifying with other people my age. And then I discovered there's this whole other place called the World Wide Web, and I met other people who are invisible illness warriors like me, and it saved my life. But working full time is something that a lot of people in these invisible illness communities struggle to do. And I panicked. I thought, am I going to be well enough to hold a full-time job? I don't know. But in order for me to continue getting my immunoglobulin therapy, I'm going to have to figure this out. My life depended on it. And I took off my blindfold and dove in head first. And here I am. I've held a full-time job for a little over 3 years now. And the battle hasn't really changed, except I know that I can now provide myself with the life-saving therapy that I need. Except the fight doesn't change. I mean, when you're an invisible illness warrior, you're an invisible illness warrior for some of us, it's a lifetime sentence. And I think one of the biggest lessons that I've learned over the course of this journey is that searching for a cure is not the answer. That is not the right thing to do, because for me, it doesn't appear that there is a cure. And for a little while, I was chasing after what I thought was a cure. And when it wasn't, I plummeted. I went to a very dark place because I was chasing after a unicorn. And I've gotten older, and I've come to terms with the fact that I should try to shift my focus and be a little bit more concerned with just making it through the day, one day at a time, and learning how to cope, learning how to handle the ups and downs, and just knowing that for some of us, chronic pain and stomach issues and autoimmune problems are part of our existence. And neither, it's not good, it's not bad, for some of us, it's woven into who we are. And I think I'm finally maybe at that age where I'm willing to accept that. Of course, I'm telling you that now. If you ask me tomorrow, I may say, no, this is exhausting. I'm ready to not have an autoimmune disease. But on good days, I can say that it is what it is. And I'm learning to make the most of it. And one of the biggest things is reaching out to people and realizing that there is a support group out there. You just have to be willing to tune into that support group. Don't be afraid to find comfort in the presence of others who are going through the same journey you're going through. It doesn't make you any weaker. It makes you, I'm not going to say it makes you stronger. It just makes it easier to cope because you're strong already.
Wow, Allie, what a journey. Thank you so much for sharing that with me and our listeners. We are not just sharing stories on Dear Warriors. Our goal is to help change lives. And when you share this podcast, you are helping to change lives too. Listen to this podcast on your favorite streaming platform. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time, and God bless.